Hello, everyone, and welcome. The webinar will begin in approximately 5 minutes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. The webinar will begin in approximately 4 minutes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. The webinar will begin in about 2 minutes, and it will be a 1-hour webinar. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the Interview Success Practice and Make a Lasting Impression webinar. My name is Kate Wingrove, and I'm the Training and Development Director with Toastmasters International. This is the last of 3 webinars in our Interview Success series. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. There's a Q&A pane or Q&A feature within Zoom, and you can go ahead and submit your questions using that feature throughout the webinar. We do have a designated period at the very end of the webinar where we will be taking questions that have been submitted. But with so many people on the call, we may not be able to answer all questions that are submitted. We'll do the best that we can, but we thank you in advance for your patience on this. We do also have a chat pane, and I see that many of you are already very comfortable using the chat pane, and that is fantastic. Feel free to use the chat pane throughout the webinar to talk with one another, but please know that our team will be focused on the questions posted in the Q&A pane, and so we won't be engaging in the chat pane. Please always be polite and courteous to your fellow attendees when engaging in the chat pane. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a post-webinar email with a link of the recording. And if you don't receive that email, please contact training@toastmasters.org. All right, I'm going to change my slide over. We have a fantastic group of experts with us today, and I am so excited to introduce you to all of them. Our moderator is Jennifer Blank. Jennifer has more than 27 years of career coaching, professional development, and communications experience. She currently directs professional development programming at a not-for-profit organization and serves as a freelance career coach. Her career development experience spans multiple organizations and countries, including establishing and providing strategic leadership for new career services programs at 2 international higher education institutions. Jennifer has lived in 3 countries, traveled widely, and advised job seekers from diverse backgrounds on career planning and job search strategies. She has written a textbook chapter and more than 75 published articles and essays, including 34 articles for the Toastmaster magazine. A Toastmaster since 1995, she is currently a member of AAMC Toastmasters in Washington, D.C. Jennifer, thanks for joining us. I'm also very excited to introduce Teresa Dukes. Teresa is a certified speaking coach and founder of Dukes Consultancy in London, England. As a trainer and speaker, she has traveled the world to help people be heard, understood, and remembered. She uncovers your hidden talents so you can present at your best and walk away from your fears. Teresa has trained more than 25,000 people in 12 countries to become more effective and confident communicators. A longtime member of Toastmasters International, she served from 2015 to 2017 as a member of Toastmasters' Board of Directors. Thanks for joining us, Teresa. The third expert with us today is Brilliant SK. Brilliant SK is a public speaker and trainer based in Mumbai, India. He is a Gallup certified strengths coach, a certified Dr. Marshall Goldsmith coach, and a trained facilitator. Professionally, he is Senior Vice President and Head of Human Resources with Times Professional Learning, a division of Times of India Group. In his spare time, Brilliant trains and coaches students and young leaders. In December of 2019, he was recognized by the Indian Human Resources Forum as the best HR leader in EdTech. Brilliant is a part of the curriculum development team for Women's University in Mumbai and the recipient of the Rex Fellow Silver Award instituted by the United Nations. He has been a Toastmaster since 2009 and is currently serving as the Region 13 advisor for Toastmasters International. Thanks for joining us, Brilliant. And with that, let's get to it and we can start learning about how we can make a lasting impression. And I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer. Jennifer, take it away.
Thank you, Kate, for those generous introductions, and welcome everyone. If you're joining for the first time in this series, I just want to note that this webinar series is modeled after the Master the Art of Interviewing article in this month's Toastmaster magazine. If you have not read that yet, I recommend that you do. You can find it on the Toastmasters website within the magazine section. We believe that the steps in the article can help you strengthen your interviewing and job search skills to help you find a job or help you find a job that's a better fit for you. Now, we have thousands of people who will be joining us and watching this webinar. And our panelists are extremely knowledgeable, but they're not going to know all things about all countries and all cultures. So if you hear something that's not quite the right fit for where you are, that's fine. Just honor what's appropriate for you. But just like the last two webinars, I know that you'll walk away with some things that will help you move forward in your job search. So today we're going to be focusing on the last two steps in the article, practicing and making an impression. And I don't believe that practice makes you perfect, because I actually don't believe in the concept of perfect. But what I do believe is that practice will help you finesse and when you get those unanticipated questions, and will help you maintain poise in tough or challenging situations. So let's get started and check in with our panelists and see what they think. I'm going to start with Teresa. When it comes to interviewing, how can people stand out and differentiate themselves in such a challenging and competitive environment?
Hey, and that's a really great question, because I get that all the time. How can I be different? How can I stand out? And with everything going online at the moment, it's really important that you actually know what technology you're going to be using. I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's really important that you understand what you're going to be, how you're going to be. Are you going to be face-to-face with somebody? Is it going to be an in-person interview? You actually need to know who it is you're going to talk to, because if we're not actually doing a face-to-face, we may have forgotten who that person is. So you need to know who you are going to be sitting in front of, whether it's in face-to-face or whether it's across a screen like it is today. But you know, I think as far as making that great first impression, it has to come down with the work that you put in. This isn't I'm going to wing it kind of thing. This is, you actually have to put in the work. You have to research that company. You need to research the job as well. You need to know what you're going into. And you need to know, hey, is this company a good fit for me? And I think if you know going in, if this is going to be a good fit for you, then you'll know what questions you need to ask. And that's probably my biggest tip right now. Go in knowing that it's not just a one-way interview, it's a chance for you to interview them as well.
Great, brilliant.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Teresa, I completely agree with what you say. I personally believe that if you do everything that everyone else does, you're just a face in the crowd. What will make you different and stand out is how can you effectively present yourself as the best fit candidate for this role. What happens most of the time, based on my personal experience, I have seen that people just send a blanket CC mail to everyone saying that please find my profile for this role. I would say position your candidature well as per the role. What have you done? What is it that specifically aligns to the organizational needs and how you fit in? Trust me, when you make that simple effort to put that value add, you will definitely stand out. In addition, I would add on to what Teresa also said. Do a detailed research about the organization and the role that you are about to apply for. It's very clear that you have the job description available, but go on to LinkedIn, do a search, try to find out, do you have any common connects from whom you can get culture about the organization, how things work, what is the specific that will help you stand out. And most important, the third thing that I feel can create a positioning for yourself is being genuine. As Jennifer rightly said, you need not know everything about everything. It is okay to say that I don't know. That way you build your credibility. So I think if you can position yourself along with the ability to have that confidence, I think that will make you stand out from the rest.
Thank you. And I just want to add, part of that research, exactly what Teresa and Brilliant have said, you can ask what the structure will be for the interview. Who will you be meeting? It's really important. Don't hesitate to ask that. That's part of the research that you're doing. So that's great. So let's dig a little deeper now in terms of practicing and talking about interviewing structures. So let's talk about the different types of interview questions that people might encounter, such as behavior-based interviewing or case-based interviewing. and how to practice answering those types of questions. I'm going to go back to you, Brilliant.
Thank you. Very, very complicated situation because it all depends on the kind of the role that you're applying for. It could vary from a skill-based question, which could focus on the technical knowledge that you bring or the functional aspects that are required. It could move to specifically behavioral questions, wherein they are aimed at testing softer skills, including attitude, your loyalty, the style of working, leadership. For example, I was asked a question: have you managed a diverse team and what made you successful? Now, I could have said yes, but then I did not know what exactly the interviewer wanted me to answer when he said a diverse team. Is it with regards to age? Is it with regard to gender? What exactly? So I did present my viewpoint. End of it, I realized that the interviewer had something else in mind. So at times, I feel when you're faced with such questions, it's also good to clarify a bit, ask a second question saying, could you elaborate on what exactly you would want? And then there is the stress interviews, which I'm sure some of us would have faced, which is very difficult. I remember way back when I was just a fresh graduate and I had applied for a job. That was one of the worst interviews, I would say, but it gave me a lot of insights into stress interviews. I was made to sit on a broken chair and I actually fell down. And when I got back, I was very clear that I don't want to be in this organization, but it was a style where they wanted to check if I am pushed, what happens to me. But trust me, many organizations these days have stopped taking stress interviews because the candidate feels very uncomfortable, unhappy, and maybe the thought process about a great place to work can change based on this. And then there are these case-based and situation-based questions, failure stories or success stories. Have you faced conflict? And I would say that sometimes when you're asked a question, you can always share a failure story as well, because not everything can be success. And if you are willing to share failures, it shows that you are confident enough to say, yes, I made a mistake, but I'm willing to learn.
Brilliant. Your example, of that stress interview, it goes to what Teresa was saying, that it's a two-way street. And employers are deciding on you, but you're deciding on employers. And if you're being treated a certain way, you might not want to be part of that. So that's an important thing to remember. So I'm going to go back to Teresa too with these different types of interview questions.
I love situational or behavioral questions, because what that does for the candidate or the interviewee is it gives them a chance to start to think about examples they can bring to the party. And these are examples of things they have gone through, they've experienced, they've witnessed during previous roles. And I deal with a lot of people who are really worried about how do I answer that. And that's where the STAR comes in: the situation, the task, the action you take, and then the result that happens from it. But I add on a plus. And a lot of times people will get through the situation, the task, and the action, but forget about the result. And that's where I start to say, well, we have to have the result. We need to know what came out of the action that you took. But what I really want to know as an interviewer is I want to know what lesson you learned, and that's the plus. Even though we have the result there, and sometimes that's added in there, what's the lesson you've learned, it's not strong enough. So I always add a STAR plus, which allows people to really take on board, hey, this is what I went through. I dealt with conflict. It didn't work out the way I thought it was going to, but hey, next time I know that from what I learned from this, it's going to allow me to be more effective. I'm going to communicate more effectively. I'm going to communicate, period, which is what happens a lot of times with conflict. We don't communicate at all. And that's a really key type of question that you can use the STAR technique with, the STAR plus technique with. People ask me, well, can I use it for any of the questions? And actually you can. You can answer any question. What's my weakness? What's my strength? And the questions that people always, they send me, I got a little list of them, of things that they worry about. It's like, Why should they hire me? Why are they searching for a new job at this particular point? What's a scenario? What scenario-based questions can you help me with? And the top one that I always get is, tell me about yourself. So with STAR-based questions, these are all focusing around stories. And that's where I try and bring in that storytelling opportunity for them so that they can really relax and be authentic and tell that interviewer exactly what's going on and the outcome from that situation.
Thank you. And just in case people are wondering, so behavior-based questions, like just to reinforce, they check in with you because the theory is what you've done before will predict what you do in the future. So a lot of those sample will be, tell me about a time. If you hear something that starts like that, that's a behavior-based question. And then, so having anecdotes, like Teresa and has said, that having those anecdotes are really important because then you can back up what you're saying. If you're just saying I'm good at this, but then have nothing to back it up, right? Exactly. And I love the plus, the STAR plus that you've talked about, Teresa. So can we talk a little bit more about the STAR plus and that, and there's also something called CCAR, challenge, context, action, result. They're all kind of that similar thing. I'm going to head back to Teresa and then grab Brilliant again, but can you talk a little bit more about kind of how people approach those questions?
Yeah, so, especially with the situational questions, I always get people to have a little story journal that they collect, and I want them to go through their particular job, their existing job, one that they did before, something that they do in the community, maybe they're on a board of some sort, anything. So all of these examples that you're going to use for your situational questions are from things you have experienced. It doesn't necessarily have to be the job you are in at the moment, but when you look at them, it's important that you are spending probably about 2 to 3 minutes on answering a situational question. It does not have to be long and drawn out. You want to be really succinct so that you can answer all the questions that they have. We could sit here and tell a story, and I'm really good at that, just sitting there and enjoying the time and, oh my God, give me more, give me more. But we really want to get to the crux of it. And the crux of what that interview is looking for is, was the result, was it good? Was there a result? Was it good? Was it bad? And what did you learn from it? So we know you're not going to either repeat the bad habit in the future, or you're going to find a way to deal with something better, even more so in the future. Now, when it comes to problem solving questions, and that's where the CCAR comes into it. That's a challenge, put it into context, the action you took and the result. And a lot of times that is just a chance for that employer to figure out, hey, can they problem solve? Can they troubleshoot? Are they analytical? Yeah. And that for me is a really important another situation that you can use, or another technique that you can use that will make you stand out above and beyond. Those particular questions take a little bit longer, and sometimes, depending on the job you're going for, they will be an interaction with the interviewer, where you'll sit there and they'll give you the situation and they'll say, hey, now solve that problem for me. And you need to ask questions. You need to be interactive with them. So it's not just a answer it all at one go. You have to kind of give and take with that interviewer to find out exactly what they're looking for. And that takes a lot of practice. All of these take a lot of practice. And if you are practicing with your friend or a family, that's really good. But I also believe that you need to do something with somebody who's been there, who's done that, who understands what a STAR question is about and what a CSAR question is about. And I always push people to think about a coach. If you haven't got a coach and you're going for a really big job, invest in yourself. That's what I would push to them. Yeah.
Great. And brilliant.
Yeah. So I would say, best thing to remember is one size doesn't fit all. So what I would suggest is, just like you have the 10 commandments, For every job interview that you go, have at least 10 small stories that will fit into the STAR and the CCAR. So you know specifically what is it that you are looking for. And trust me when I say this, it's the organizations need as well to understand how you perform in situations where there is a challenge that has come across. So I remember very clearly I had interviewed someone where I wanted to understand when resources are limited and you don't have manpower to work on it, how do you literally step in and say, give me the job and let me do it? So I had asked this question to one of the candidates, and I realized that the response that I got from the candidate was amazing. He said that his project had a challenge with manpower, and the project manager came and asked him, you have to learn HTML and we have to create a prototype for a client. Are you willing to do it? I'll give you 3 days to learn HTML and do it. And that's when the person said, I have no clue about what HTML is, but since you believe in me, let me go ahead and do it. And trust me, it sounds very movie oriented, but yes, this candidate did learn HTML with the support of the team members, went ahead, created a prototype, and thankfully he was taken to the client presentation where he could respond to some of the queries. And within a span of a week, they got the project. And I'm happy to say this person went on to become a project manager later on. But stepping up to the requirement for the organization was a classic example of a CCR case where a story was well presented and it was picked up by the organization. So I think preparation is the key. You may have faced challenges, but never ever talk negative about the organization or your managers. What I would say that even if you have not succeeded in some instances, never say negative or talk or pull down your organization or managers, because that will stick with them for a very long time and you may actually fall out of the race. Back to you.
Thank you. Yes, I think having those anecdotes and examples already, you don't want to be having to think about those. You should, have those at hand. And like Brilliant said, have a number of them. For me, I always recommend, you look at the job description as what the skills and experiences they're looking for, and have a couple anecdotes for each so that you can mix it up, have different aspects of the examples. I think that's really important. And like Teresa was saying, really be concise, right? Get to the good stuff of those examples. Don't just tell a story forever, get to the good stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of different structures that you might encounter. So, Brilliant already talked a little bit about a stress interview. There are, different formats like a panel interview or a group interview, and then a little bit more maybe what most people are used to, one-on-one. So how do you prepare for those different types and practice for those? And I'm going to go back to you, Brilliant.
So it depends on the need of the organization. So when we talk of group interviews, it's very different from a panel interview. In a panel, you have panelists who will ask one candidate a question, whereas in a group interview, you will have multiple candidates coming across and presenting their candidature. The idea is for an organization, generally the group interviews happen when there is a need for picking up candidates from a large pool. And this works mostly in India, I'm talking about. I'm not sure about the other parts of the world. When we are looking for call center executives or fresh graduates, where we need to see how quick they are, how do they display specific traits like teamwork, leadership, communication, taking up ownership. I would prefer to have a group interview and I can quickly make those decisions. Whereas in terms of a panel interview, it's based on the organization need, and time management is critical. So I may have someone from the functional team, someone from the reporting team, and one from HR, so that all of them can interview and analyze the candidate and his or her fitment into this role. Preparing for this is only one thing which I can say, as it has been repeated time and again: practice, practice, practice. Make it as a game. I love to share this with most of the fresh students that I coach, is that, whenever possible, whenever you're traveling, instead of gossiping, try to have a conversation like an interview question. So if you're three of them, two of them pose questions and one person responds. try ways and means through which you can make the best of the time that you have. And trust me, it sounds foolish at start, but the more you practice, the better you become. As Jennifer rightly said, you do not become perfect by practicing, but you gain the confidence. And it's important that you are ready when the opportunity arrives. You know for sure that what you need to do. Over to you, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you. Teresa.
And, there are so many different ways that people try to prepare. And it could be that they have this little conversation with their partner or somebody within their family. And if you are a member of a speakers group, because I think we got a lot of people out here that are, there's always ways to prepare for that quick fire type of interview. And sometimes that's what a lot of them do. They'll do a quick fire of questions, and you need to answer them really, really quickly and very succinctly. And within Toastmasters, obviously, you can use table topics. And I've seen a lot of clubs that will utilize that particular part of their meeting for somebody who's going to be going through a job interview. And it gives them a really great opportunity to get feedback on how they've answered those questions. Now, I also, I worked with an individual that wanted to run for an office. They wanted to get elected to a position. And she walked in and she says, "Oh my God, Teresa, I have no idea what to do. I'm scared to death. I'm unfocused. I don't know how to pull my questions together." And I talked to her for about maybe an hour, 2 hours, and went through everything that I thought she would need to deal with and how to focus on two areas. It was the quick fire answers, and then it was a longer, more like a speech type answer. And by doing that, she realized, and I brought in the STAR technique as well, actually helping her decide, hey, I need to find a way to focus and structure everything. So she went from unfocused, unstructured, to actually being able to be very clear and concise on how she was going to go about answering all of the questions and delivering her speech. And what she realized at the end of it was, if she had not talked to me, she would have probably just been thrown to the side. But because she had this one little conversation, it allowed her to really come alive, and she won the election, by the way, which was fantastic. I'm thinking, yeah, that's great.
Jennifer, if I may.
Yeah, but it's all about working with somebody that knows what you're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Jennifer.
brilliant.
Yeah, so since Teresa mentioned about table topics, this is something very interesting. Table topics is about impromptu speaking skills. And I remember when I was my club president way back in the year 2009, 2010, 3 beauty pageants contestants came to our club to practice impromptu speaking. And it was very simple. They believed that Toastmasters was a place where they could practice every time, and it helped them in 3 specific areas. One is listening, second is organizing their thoughts, and third, the most important, is delivery. And trust me, when Teresa mentioned about it, I went back into flashback about those pageants coming in. And I think Toastmasters can definitely help. We have a session on table topics or impromptu speaking at every meeting where you can participate and better and sharpen your skills. That's it.
Great. Yes, and I just wanted to clarify. So table topics is, as they were saying, impromptu speeches from 1 to 2 minutes. You don't know the question that you're going to get, and you don't know if you'll be the one to answer that question until it comes to you. And that's where you practice speaking on your feet, which is a wonderful way to practice interviewing, because you don't know what questions are going to be coming your way. You're going to practice and be prepared, but that's just one of the many ways that Toastmasters can help you if you're not a member already. I also think just the process of speaking out loud, I know a lot of times I'll have a great answer in my head and I think it's brilliant, and then I try to say it out loud and it doesn't come out quite as I thought it would. So I like to practice things out loud long before I ever walk into the actual interview. So,
and I'll add to that, Jennifer, just really quickly.
yeah.
Even if you only say it out loud once, if you're doing your practice and you say it out loud once, it kind of sticks in your head. But without saying it out loud ever, it will never be the way you want it to be when it comes out of your mouth. So say it out loud at least once.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I've seen, I don't know if either of you have seen this, when people talk about their experiences and those anecdotes, they tend to say we, which is lovely, but really the employer wants to know what you have done. So I know I've coached a lot of people. Sometimes it's really hard and it goes against kind of what you're used to, but you have to say you have to claim the piece that you did. I don't know if you found that. I see, Tracy, you're shaking your head.
Yes, yes. I mean, that is something that is really difficult to get out of people. Now, I'm living in the UK. I come from America. In America, it doesn't seem to be a problem. Everybody's saying, yes, I did this. It's fantastic, right? They own it. They shout it from the rooftops because that's what Americans do. That's what I was raised to do. Blow your own trumpet. Nobody else is going to do it for you. But in the UK, I found it was a little bit more reserved. And they're like, oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't want to shout too much. And it's getting them to believe in themselves and say, without me taking this action, we as a team would not have been successful. So I had to make a decision in order for this project to make more money for our company, to save us millions of pounds or dollars. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't made that decision. So it is all about them believing enough in themselves to actually own that word I. It's okay to say I, especially in a situational star plus question. Yeah.
Brilliant. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, in fact, it becomes very contextual. It depends on what kind of a role you're looking at. If it's a team-based role where you're looking to talk about how effectively you have managed team, the usage of we becomes quite common. And trust me, when I speak as a manager, I would never want to say I did it because it may seem, drumming up and saying, okay, I did it, beating my chest out loud. Oh yeah, this is me. But reality is, know what the situation is. Make sure you go back to the CCAR situation. What was the context? What did you do and how did you help the entire team? Well, it may come out as a we, but your role in that situation stands out. So I agree with Teresa when she says that sometimes you need to understand that there is an I in a we. That without me, it could not have been possible. So I need to position my role as a team manager and how I took the team together. So it kind of is a tricky thing until and unless you know what kind of a role it is. If you talk too much of an I in a team management role, then it could lead you to saying that, okay, this guy is too much of himself. I think may not really fit. So try to balance it out by saying, okay, position the I's and the V's appropriately.
Absolutely. I think we rarely do anything alone these days. So absolutely putting in that context, but also not being afraid to talk about your role within the larger team. Absolutely. And I think it's also helpful to think about it. You're presenting facts. We're not saying you should brag. We're not saying you should boast. Certainly not make it more than what it was, but presenting the facts of the situation is really important.
Sure.
So let's, I know you all touched base a little bit on this at the very beginning question, but let's go back to like making that first impression. Really, what are some things that people can really be mindful of when they want to, now we're talking about not just preparation, but like you're beginning the interview or you're about to begin the interview. So think about it kind of in that time and space. And what are things that people can do? And so, Brilliant, I'm going to start with you.
It starts with preparing well. I know most people would just want to walk into an interview because I know what I have done as my job role. But if you are talking about an impression, there is a lot more that the organization would want to. You need to invest time in not just understanding about the role, but penning down aspects where you feel, okay, this is where I think my value add can happen. This is an interesting interview which I conducted a few years ago. A random person sent me a message on LinkedIn and sought time for discussion. I had no clue whether I had met this person earlier or not. But this person came to the interview with a presentation, a short 5-slider, which spoke about exactly what we do as an organization what he has done in the past, what is it that he can value add, and the last two slides spoke about what is the kind of investment and a 3-year plan. And trust me, initially I was very reluctant to even have a chat with this person. But because that person took that initiative, he made the effort to create a plan looking at what we are doing, how his skill set can work, and what is it that we need to invest in. About a week later, we hired him, and today, if I were to say, he is heading a business unit. When I met him for the first time, we never ever thought that we would actually venture into that kind of a business ever. So sometimes the organization may not really have that position, but if you get an opportunity, position yourself so strongly that the organization would want to get you on board rather than you pushing, saying that please take me in. The organization will be after you.
Great. Wow. So Teresa.
I'm going to tell you some things to do and some things not to do. And I think probably the biggest thing that I want people to realize, especially today, and especially when we're sat in this sort of environment, the majority of interviews today are happening behind the screens now. So I want you to make sure that you treat that entrance into the actual interview the same way you would if you were actually walking into a building and greeting the secretary or the receptionist or the PA to the person that you're going to be interviewed with. You still have to show up as a professional. And that means that your etiquette when you're in front of that person or you're in front of people in this situation, you need to show that you've made an effort, that you look the part, that you're dressed the part fully. And I'm going to say fully again, because we're in pajama country at the moment, right? Pajamas for the morning, pajamas for the afternoon, and pajamas for the evening. When you are fully dressed for an interview, you need to be fully dressed, because it's not only makes you feel like you're doing the right thing and that you are ready for that interview, it's the mindset. It gets your mind in the right place. And you're not halfway business and halfway pajamas, okay? So dress for the part fully. And I want you to show up on time, not just in the nick of time. Don't turn your camera on and not be sat down and ready. You need to have everything right there ready for you, as if you are literally walking into the door and going, hey, here's my CV, here's my covering letter, here is extra information I would like you to see. Have it right there ready for you to go with immediately, instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm in a rush. So be professional. That's the really, really important thing. I want to also highlight the fact that we have a lot of social media going on out there at the moment. You've got Facebook, you've got LinkedIn, you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, which, okay, that's great if that's what you want to be on, but you also need to make sure that your social media is professional. And if you have something out there that isn't professional, you need to go and clean it up to make sure that you don't have any dodgy things going on out there, any dodgy email addresses or anything that can put you in a bad light. So make sure your LinkedIn and all of your social media is correctly professional and isn't going to catch you out. And I want you to remember that you could get called for an interview at any time. It could be tomorrow. I need to talk to you tomorrow. And now, today, that happens even more. You need to stay ready. You don't need to get ready. You need to stay ready. So you need to be prepared at all times. Don't think, oh, I've got a week. I can practice with everybody. No, you're going to have maybe 24 hours. So you need to be ready no matter when you get that phone call. So those are my tips for you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Also, you talk about those on-screen interviews, also making sure that not only are you ready, but your environment is ready, right? You want a professional, background, environment as much, and that can be really tough these days with, staying at home and all those things. And so, trying to do as best you can with that. So let's talk about now, we're going through the interview, And then, so from kind of during the interview to wrap up of the interview to even beyond, what are some things that we should be doing to really just, make the best impression, strengthen our candidacy, and keep ourselves, as candidates on top of mind of the employer. So I don't know if we can kind of work through that. Brilliant, I'm going to come to you first.
So I would say, irrespective of what kind of a role you're applying for, remember the 3 C's. Confidence, it's a game changer for you. Credibility, that's what organizations would want. And most important is the last C, which is clarity of your thoughts. If you remember, we all spoke about making sure that you write it down, be precise. Do not get into a storytelling which goes for 10, 20 minutes. You know that your thoughts are very clear, you're focused. And your responses to every question should be aligned to these 3 C's. Speak with confidence, have that credibility and clarity of thoughts. It's important that sometimes organizations may not tell you everything that a candidate should know. Ask relevant questions. Don't ask questions like, oh, does your company work from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock? Don't ask such stupid questions. Ask questions which is not publicly known. For example, what is the growth prospect for me if I join your organization? Where do I look myself maybe a year later or 2 years later? How is it that my role fits into the larger scheme of the organization? These all are questions which help the interviewer understand that you are passionate about this job and you have put in an effort. Because sometimes when everything else is same, the candidate gets in because of these small points or small actions that you have taken. And when you finish the interview, while you thank the interviewer, you can actually ask them, when is it that I can follow up for the next steps? And as we have already been saying, don't be too pushy. If the interviewer says that, okay, we will let you know, take a step back, make time for about a week or two, and then send in that response. Always remember, whatever you write in your professional profile, a CV or a resume or whatever you call it, everything that is written must be 100% true. Never ever fake it, because reference checks do happen, and people, Teresa mentioned about it, we are all on social media. So your footprints are checked to understand how you behave when you are not at work and how you behave at work. It should not be too different. It should be somewhere aligned. I can be fun loving at work, I can be fun loving while I am not at work. But there should not be too much of a gap where I am looking something else in the organization and outside I am a complete freak. Okay. So
I love that. So confidence, credibility, and clarity, and asking really insightful questions that you've developed based on all that great research that you've done. So Teresa, what else?
So I would get them to think about the 3 Ps. That'll be mine. So my 3 Ps are prepare, obviously, make sure that you know everything you can about that company and about the job. And the preparation comes into play when you're looking at your CV. Remember, you don't only have one CV, you probably have developed your CV to match the job. And if you haven't, you probably need to, okay? So preparation in all aspects. The second one is practice. And that means making sure that you are practicing everything that you can think of that would come in. And go and ask people for different questions that you think might come up at an interview. Go and look on LinkedIn and other recruitment websites that give you examples. They're out there. They're free for you to download. And there are even places that you can go and practice online. Because there are different types of interviews that say, hey, aren't going to be a face-to-face. They're going to be there may be even an interview, which I had somebody experience recently that was, they were set in front of a video camera. They were asked the questions and they just had to reply. There was nobody there and it was recorded. They had to walk away. So you need to practice that. And this has given us a really good chance to do that. And the last one is perform. And it's to know what you should do and what you should not do. Perform according to your authenticity. Be true to who you are. Make sure you understand what you really want out of this job. Come prepared with those questions like Brillian was talking about. And when I think about those particular questions, I always suggest that people bring between 2 to 5 questions to ask that interviewer. And people say, well, what are they? What should they be? And Brillian talked on what they shouldn't be. But maybe you think about bringing in questions for the interviewer, like, this interviewer, the person that is interviewing you is possibly going to be the person you work with. So what is it that makes them happy to work in that business, right? So think about a couple of questions for the interviewer, maybe for the company. So how does the company define and measure success? And does it meet your values, right? If they're measuring success in a different way, maybe it doesn't fit your way of thinking. So what these questions will pull out whether you're a good fit or not for that particular company. And the last one is, hey, make sure you have 1 or 2 questions about the job itself specifically. So for example, what's the most important thing I need to accomplish in the first 6 months of being employed with you? So really simple questions that are not the average normal questions that anybody could ask. But the last one for perform, and I've had people say, gosh, Teresa, I don't know how to end the interview. I really don't know how to end it. Do I just go, thanks for listening, or are you going to get back to me whenever? But it's really important that you have a little bit of a script ready to find a way for you to wrap up that interview that is comfortable for you. And it may be, hey, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I really look forward to hearing from you really soon. When will that be? And lead into it that way. So it's being very, very conscious of their time and also of everything they've given to you and the fact that you've also been able to give to them as well. So you thank them and you follow up afterwards. You wait a little while and you send them a thank you email as well. So that's how I would find a way to end that interview.
Great. So we have the 3 C's: competence, credibility, and clarity. And we have the 3 P's: prepare, practice, perform. And I would just say, I would echo all that with the questions. Don't be afraid to have them written down. Don't be afraid to have notes. Even if you're an in-person interview, you can write little notes in the corner of things that you want to highlight about yourself. That's part of that preparation and making sure that you establish your credibility. I'll weave in all the C's and the P's. But with that, I know that it's time for Q&A, so I'm going to return control over to Kate.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. This has been so wonderful. I know I've seen fantastic comments in the chat from all of our attendees, just loving the information that's been shared so far. And we have received a number of questions, so we'll go ahead and get through as many of them as we can in the time remaining. The first question is going to be for Jennifer, and this is from Christine. Christine wanted to know, when you're asked an interview question, how long is it appropriate to process your answer before you go about articulating your response?
So Christine, there's kind of no magic number, but what I've found that some people feel pressured. They're uncomfortable with silence, and so they feel like they need to rush right in and answer. But you don't have to do that. You can take some time and think about that. If you're really uncomfortable, you can maybe, if it's natural for you, you could say, that's a great question, or, do a little filler like that to get you going. But don't feel like you have to answer right after the question. You can take some seconds, and that's why practicing out loud, getting used to things like, in table topics and Toastmasters, when you're so used to answering on the spur of the moment, the more you do, even if it's not that same question that you're going to get, the more you're going to be comfortable taking that time, taking that breath, thinking through some things, and then beginning.
Fantastic, thank you.
Kate, if I may add.
Of course, absolutely.
Thank you. One thing is, as rightly mentioned, it's important to let the interviewer know that you will take a moment or so that you can frame your response. Don't just spend time in just being blank. Just let the interviewer know, give me a moment, a minute or two, and let me come back. You can actually start working on it, and it helps most of the time.
Wonderful.
And sorry, and I'll just add, obviously, the more you practice, especially situational questions, the quicker they're going to come to your head. If you have those stories ready and handy already up here, that answer is going to come a lot quicker than you think. But absolutely agree with Jennifer. Take them as much time as you need. Let them know, and Brilliant as well. Let them know, hey, I need to think about this for a minute. But yeah, this is the good example. This is what I can share with you. Yeah.
Fantastic. Teresa, the next question is going to be for you, and it's from Radhakrishnan. And Radhakrishnan wants to know, what is your view on people moving from company to company every 2 to 3 years? Is that kind of a norm nowadays?
Brilliant loves it.
Do you know, I have a son-in-law, and he does exactly that. He actually is finding a way to build his skill set, improve on what he already knows, and find a way to climb the ladder. And if you're doing that, then absolutely it's fantastic. If you are doing it because you're not getting along with everybody else, which I have seen happen, then it's time for you to start to do a self-assessment. What's going on? What is it, me? Am I the common denominator? What do I need to work on? And that's where a coach comes in to help. If they think, hey, I'm changing again, it's another 2 years and I'm in a new job, maybe they need to come back home and go, hey, what is going on with me? Why don't they love me? Yeah. But if you're doing it for promotion, it's absolutely the right thing to do, because the more you can gain in whatever skill set you're trying to improve on. Mine is, my son-in-law is a programmer, so he has worked his way through it, doing different types of programming, and now is eventually running his own team, and that's where he wanted to be. And it took him about 6 years to do that. Yeah.
I know, Brilliant. I have to hear what's going through his mind, because he had a great reaction to that question.
Yeah, because I thought this question would come to me. My career exactly replicates what the question is. An average of about 2 years is what I have been in an organization. So I echo what Teresa has rightly said. It's about, if your aspirations do not fit with the organization and you are not aligned, it's okay to move on. It really doesn't matter how long you have been in an organization, but what is the value add that you have given to the organization. And I'm proud to say, and I can, thump my chest and talk about it today, is way back in 2005 when I joined an organization. I worked there for about 3 years, and just about a week ago, someone called me and said, Brilliant, the process that you set in this organization is still working. So I think I did my bit by adding value to that particular process. And things did not work out. If I were there, I probably would have reached to the helm of affairs there at that as of today. But I am very satisfied that I could add value and I could move on. So it's important for you to also analyze that you cannot stay with an organization for long just because you don't have an alternative. You need to create opportunities for yourself. And the son-in-law example that Teresa rightly said is, you have the right to refuse an organization. While organizations keep refusing candidates also can refuse. And today it's okay. It doesn't matter 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. These are just numbers. Value addition is what counts.
I would say for some industries, that's actually more normal than, it's not always, it's not necessarily a negative thing, even when you first hear it. I mean, it's very normal. And I would just add that you just want to recognize that you need to have your story, right? And I don't mean it made up, like, what's your narrative and what's the perspective? You continue to grow, you continue, so just anytime you feel kind of uncomfortable or worried about a question, that's when you have to really practice and prepare and have the story down, and then it's fine.
Fantastic. Thank you all. Brilliant. This next question is for you, and it's from Kurti. And Kurti wants to know, how can you present failures or mistakes in a positive light? There's some concern about whether or not it might backfire and lead the interviewer to think that maybe I'm a little bit careless. So how can we go about managing that?
It is a coincidence that we are talking about failure. It reminds me of the project number 4 of Toastmasters Confident Communication Manual. It's not about what you want to say, it's about how you want to present it. Every person wants to be seen as a success story, but we all know in corporate life that's not reality. Whenever you're presenting your failures, you need to talk about what is the effort that you put in, what are the challenges that you faced, how did you escalate matters, how did you make sure that when you were pushed to the wall you did not give up. For me, when I'm interviewing, to be very honest, I'm not looking at a success story. I always ask this question: what is the one instance where you failed, and tell me what is it that you learned from the mistake. I made a blunder. If I'm not willing to own that up, then I don't think you fit the requirement that I have. There are organizations where we've heard stories, I'm sure most of you would have heard, where people make mistakes and they just come up with a resignation letter and say, I just want to move. But the leader in the organization would say, okay, I made an investment of X million in you in that failure. I want to make sure that you rectify that and make sure it's a success so that I can recover twice the amount. So, what is more important for me as an interviewer is to understand how did you, you know, react or respond. I would not say react. How did you respond when you were faced with failure? Did you just give up, throw your hands up, and say nothing is happening, or did you make certain steps to say, okay, I agree, this is a failure. This is what I need to do. I go back with a new proposal and start working on it. Over to you.
I think that's so great. I want to go back to what Teresa said about the STAR plus. It's that plus, it's that lesson learned, which I thought was really a great addition.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I will add, I would much prefer to hire somebody who has failed instead of someone who has never failed, because we learn so much more from our failures than we do from our successes. Okay, and you look at Michael Jordan. I go to that basketball player. He had to practice and practice and practice and fail and fail and fail until he was actually agreed to become this fabulous basketball player. And the same with Walt Disney. He was told he had no imagination. So the more we continue to hone and progress our skills and learn from our failures, then we equal success. So give me a failed person every time.
All right, we have time for maybe one more quick question. So this is from Brenda, and Brenda says, I know we should write a thank you note after the interview, but if you don't have the contact information of the person that interviewed you, but you know the contact information of the recruiter, do you thank the recruiter, or do you ask for email addresses during the interview? How do you recommend you get that contact information?
I think Teresa's showing a big old start with her.
That would be part of my closing. I would ask them, well, how can I follow up with you? Shall I write to this email address? Is this the correct one? And actually get that confirmation at the end of the interview, because by the time you get to the end, you're going to know whether or not whether or not you have that information already. But it also gives you a chance to clarify, hey, you are the person I should talk to. You are the one that I would like to follow up with. You are the one that's probably going to come back and give me the yes or no answer. So I have no qualms with them asking it right there at the end of the interview. Mm-hmm.
And I think too, I don't know how Teresa or Brilliant you handled this, but I've been in all day interviews with groups and panels and one-on-ones and all kinds, and I do my best sometimes, to send follow-up messages to all those. Sometimes you can just send it to one person and say, please express my gratitude on behalf of everybody. So I think, you just want to do your best and express gratitude and professionally. But you're not always going to have every single email, especially when you interview with a lot of people.
So I would just add that I personally prefer that if you have a recruiter who's been your contact, channelize all communication through them, because many organizations and even employees are not very happy sharing their personal contact details. So you can just drop in a thank you note to them and say, please pass on this to the manager who is interviewing. So I think if you know what you want to do, you will definitely find the means to get to that. And I think it's fair that many organizations do not share their email address or a phone number. It's always routed through a recruiter. So what works? And one point which just came up as I saw some of these pop-ups on the chat is, uh, you know, it's important to ask whether I can connect to you on LinkedIn or should I reach out to you, because trust me when I say this, I would not want to just receive an inbox on my LinkedIn. I don't know the person. I don't know where I have met you. I may not really recollect because I've been in interviews all day long. So have that courtesy to ask permission and then go ahead, or give a reference point when you're sending that request.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to answer these wonderful questions and share your wonderful answers. We are at the end of our time today. You can see on our screen share right now that if you'd like to check out Jennifer's article, you can absolutely check that out. And we have the link there for you, as well as if you'd like to find a Toastmasters Club near you. A huge thank you to Jennifer, Teresa, and Brilliant for spending this wonderful time with us today. This was a fantastic hour. We really appreciate the insights that you shared with us. And thank you to all of our attendees as well for investing the time with us today. We are so glad to have spent this time with you, and we will be sending the recording out soon. And feel free to share it with anybody that you think would benefit from the tips that were shared today. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.